when you look at all of the things that are going on at these elite universities, I think you can draw in the MMT conversation, because we still have to explain to people on a regular basis that money is printed first and taxes come after that. So once it's established that the government prints money, why are these elite universities getting not just the private money, but they're getting money from the government as well? What is the connection here? And why is it now, thank goodness, but why is it now finally coming to the surface as to why Harvard has tens of billions of dollars, why Princeton has tens of billions of dollars, why Stanford has tens of billions of dollars, and so on and so forth?
Well, I'm going to tell you two different stories. The first story, which I think is probably the most important one, is a story told by a great scholar who I have tremendous affinity for, named Davarian Baldwin. And Davarian Baldwin focuses on the ivory tower of elite universities, and he actually calls them universities as opposed to universities, because what the universities are doing is they're elite nonprofits, and they are able to acquire land as nonprofits and acquire all the land around them, and then ultimately hire, well, maybe not even hire, maybe just use the state to provide policing services for the university, keep out the ne'er-do-goods who are the people that live in the community anyway, and then simultaneously take huge amounts of monies from Boeing, from Northrop Grumman, from Halliburton, you name it, all the weapons manufacturers, etc. And they set up shop at these universities, and they have students working as interns and other things on these projects that get them even more free R&D. They no tax on the property, etc. And so these become basically tax havens. They don't pay local tax, so the local community doesn't benefit from their existence. And their federal tax doesn't exist either, because guess what? They are nonprofits, so they don't pay that tax. So they just collect huge amounts of money, huge amounts of bread. So what they're teaching is largely informed by these military contractors, etc. And it's become so epidemic, so criminal, in fact. And most people don't even talk about it. So this is a major theme. And if you're going to learn about this the correct way, I strongly recommend reading his book, In the Shadow of the Ivory Tower, How Universities Are Plundering Our Cities. And they literally keep the community off campus. They're not allowed on there. It's illegal. You're not allowed here. And then they build up all these fancy-dancy, tax-free things for rich kids that come in and lead this posh life, okay? And all at the expense, really, of the communities in which they're in. Instead of being a net benefit to the communities, it is worse. So what ends up happening is these rich kids commit crimes. They point the finger at the poor kids on the other side of the fence. They police the poor kids on the other side of the fence. The rich kids get slapped on the hand. Nothing happens to them. It's an atrocity, and it goes so much deeper than that. I strongly suggest reading this book. It's one of the most eye-opening books of all time. That said, the concept of MMT, I'm going to correct you ever so slightly because I really want you to get this part. And I know that you hate when I do this, but I love you enough to do it for you, okay?
No, it's like learning. It's like learning calculus and physics. You have to constantly be relearning it. It's necessary.
Yes. And this is it's a small but significant detail, okay? You said they print the money. And I know that you probably don't realize quite how important this distinction is, but I'm going to tell you. The government, when they put money into the economy, they never print it. They only spend it into the economy. They never print money and leave it sit in a pile somewhere waiting for a rainy day. It's not like, hey, how much money do we got sitting there? We got 10. No, we need to print more money. That's not how it works. They never care how much they have because they don't have any money. Warren Mosler, who is the father of MMT, would say the government neither has nor doesn't have dollars. It spends them into existence. Okay. So what happens is that they keystroke shit into the accounts at the Fed that then in turn goes into the Treasury's account, who then spends that money to whoever they've written a contract for. And in many cases, it's these universities that get these grants and get these really, really, really nice deals from the government. The government wants a certain thing and they go to the university, and the university, in collaboration and cooperation with our universities, our children are learning, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? But it's not printing money. It never is printing money. In fact, the idea of printing money kind of thwarts the point, the thrust of what MMT does by saying they're printing money. The average person thinks that you got a stack of Benjamins laying there in a corner and that we just printed a bunch of money and it's worthless. The thing is, the federal government always spends on something. They put a contract out there, the people, bid for it. And the government then spends that money, newly created money, not your hard-earned tax dollars. Sorry, folks. It is brand new money every single time. And every single time they tax, it's like a drain at the bottom. They just delete it. They purge what they call reserves, which are just interbanking dollars. Don't worry about that. I probably shouldn't even mention it. But the fact is that taxes delete money, spending creates money. And it's all brand new money. Now, when you look at what these universities do with that money, I think that if we all understood that arrangement, I'll bet you most of us would be out there with pitchforks and torches, because we can't afford to go to college. We're dripping in debt from student debt that they won't release us from. And these universities are making money hand over fist, and they keep jacking and jacking and jacking tuition up and cost of living. Because how do you keep the undesirables out? It's got nothing to do with just making money, because they make money a million different ways. They jack those things up because that's how they keep it exclusive. That's how they make sure that the poors and the working poor and the working class never make it to their cozy little soiree that they're having at the universities. And people get mad when I talk about this, because it's like, but I'm a good person and I got money. Why are you angry at the rich? Or why are you angry at, and it's like, hey, look, this is not about individuals. This is about a system that is there that is literally harming my family and all my children and all the other people that I know. And it is literally benefiting a handful of people. And it is creating this horrible balkanized society that we live in, where some people are comfortable enough not to care whether the Palestinians are getting slaughtered, because they can only think about Donnie Tiny Hands Trump. They can't think about Genocide Joe. So I'm actually going
to push back on that. I actually think that Trump is just an excuse. I think if this was any other circumstance, they would have figured out a way to justify it. They would have come up with something. There would have been some other excuse to say.
I don't disagree with you at all, Pete.
And I've been seeing it on social media constantly, and they're starting to reveal their hand now, because they know that they're at the end of the line, because they can't keep up this facade. It's not possible. It's just too transparent when you get to a point where you realize that what's been going on for several years is that, especially with how much control neoliberalism has in our, daily lives, especially when it comes to social media influence and the like. It could be Hollywood, it could be things like Instagram and Twitter and what have you. And what I've noticed is there is this immense amount of pressure that is put, especially in the blue regions of the country, that you must go and get a higher education, that you must go to the highest of schools. Don't even think about going to a junior college. Don't even think about going to a trade school. That's not the solution. The solution is, for example, if you're in Pennsylvania, you have to try to get into UPenn. And if you don't get into UPenn, you got to go to one of those fancy liberal arts colleges, like Franklin and Marshall in East Pennsylvania. Those are just examples of, I think, the pressure that has been created for at least a generation, if not longer now. And I wonder if that bubble is bursting. I wonder if people are starting to look at that and realize that, no, it's just one big scam and it doesn't really matter. I mean, is there a level of prestige that comes with getting a political science degree from the University of Michigan versus some other schools? Yes. Is there something to be said for getting a law degree from Stanford versus some other schools? Sure. But you're talking about a microcosm of microcosms. And there are scam after scam after scam in higher education in this country. I learned this the hard way because I ran a small business. I was involved in fundraising for college sports teams around this country. And what I learned is that it didn't matter if I had a better service than what the schools had. What mattered is that the schools wanted to control the flow of the money. That's all that matters. There is nothing else. And now that the general public is starting to see just how disgusting and despicable this really is, that this is just one big scam, I think they have really overplayed their hand here, especially in support of what's going on in Gaza. And now that they have invaded Rafah, it's like, I don't know how much further they think they're going to be able to take this, but I'm just waiting for the straw to finally break the camel's back. I feel like we're getting close to that.